Here's a step-by-step roadmap to go from 0 to 10K a month using automation. This video is going to act like a reference, so whenever you feel stuck, don't know what to do, always refer back to this video. In case you're first time here, my name is Saad. I build sales systems for a living. I've also grown a sales team agency to 139K per month. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is going to be a step-by-step roadmap to 10K a month with sales systems. We're literally going to cover everything from limiting beliefs, social proof, niche selection, infrastructure, lead scraping, to gathering data for scale. Okay. So these are the 6 things, the only 6 things that you need to know. And I'm going to explain each one of them, right, in detail and give you practical advice, practical actionables you can implement today, okay, to get up and running as quickly as possible. So this video is going to act like a reference. Whenever you get stuck, whenever you don't know what to do, right, always refer back to this video, okay? So let's get into it. So the way I structure this is we're going to start with limiting beliefs, because I always say people don't have business problems, they have personal problems. So we're going to tackle all your limiting beliefs about sales systems, automation, business in general, right? Because if you manage to destroy all your limiting beliefs, well, the practical actionables are going to be super, super easy to follow, okay? Then we're going to talk about social proof. Again, big problem. I'm assuming you don't have your first clients, or maybe you do, right? But you're still feeling a little bit weird about social proof. You have these thoughts about, well, what if I'm not good enough? What if I don't deliver? I've never done this before, okay? And then we're going to talk about niche selection, which is a big problem in the automation space. In talking with hundreds of beginners, freelancers, and entrepreneurs, they take months to pick a niche, but I'm going to give you a step-by-step on how to avoid all this analysis paralysis. So you can get up and running as quickly as possible, just like I said. And then we're going to talk about infrastructure, which is essentially the ship, right? The vehicle that you're going to be using, right? To essentially get to this 10K a month. All right. And then we're going to talk about lead scraping, right? And also going to be talking about gathering data for scale. So we're going to talk about all of these in detail. Okay. So these are the 6 components to 10K a month. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to compile everything into one condensed video. That way you go back to it whenever you feel stuck. Okay. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is limiting beliefs. Okay. Now this is super, super important. And the reason why I want to start with it, because once you learn how to destroy all of these limiting beliefs that hinder you from getting to 10K a month. Well, 10K a month is just a number, okay? We want to get to more, like 25, 50K a month, okay? So you can absolutely surpass it once you destroy all of your limiting beliefs, okay? Once you destroy all these limiting beliefs, well, the practical actionables or the practical things become way easier to follow, okay? Because now you're equipped with the mindset, right? What I mean by mindset is where your mind is set, right? That way you can avoid all of the psychological problems that you're gonna have to encounter in the journey, okay? So limiting beliefs. So now that you are watching this, you probably have limiting beliefs about automation, AI, or in general, building a business, okay? Some of these limiting beliefs, such as, well, what if I'm not good enough? What if I fail, okay? So I want you to shift this paradigm, okay, by implementing this way of thinking, okay? So the first thing is, instead of listening to this voice that comes to your head right now, which is, what if I fail? I want you to change that to, it's impossible to fail. So there's this book that I read, okay? It's called Feeling is the Secret from Neville Goddard. And he talks about when you identify this paradigm shift from what if I fail to it's impossible to fail. Well, think about it right now. When I said it is impossible to fail, see your brain right now, you get this dopamine rush. You get this, you get this chills, right? You do have chills right now going through your veins, because now when I say it's impossible to fail, your brain instinctively just tries to come up with ways to never fail, right? Think about it. You're literally experiencing the exact feeling right now. Your brain is firing up all these neurons that's saying to you and producing that's literally telling to you and producing a response such as, okay, how can I make it work? How can I make it work? So once you shift from what if I fail to like literally there's no way I can fail. Well, now you enter a different territory. You literally like transition into like another matrix, right? Let's just call it matrix. You transition into like another way of thinking where your brain starts to identify failure as non-existent, okay? So what if I fail? Change it to it's impossible to fail, okay? Second thing we're going to be talking about is always tell yourself, I'm playing a multi-game, not a one-time game. We have this space of AI and automation where everybody is chasing shiny ideas, shiny objects. Everybody is looking for this get rich quick scheme. And I blame gurus for that because they essentially are trying to make this AI and automation space this shiny diamond, when in reality it is simple, but it's not easy. But this is the whole beauty of it, okay? The whole beauty of building a sales automation or sales system or an automation business is that the journey, right? The journey is where the fun is. So you need to embrace that journey and adopt that way of thinking that one, it's impossible to fail, right? And you're not playing a one-time game, right? Business is not a one-time game, right? So you're playing a multi-time game. See, most successful people, right, at any level, not only when people are making 10K, 25, or 100K, even billionaire level income, what differentiates them from like the average Joe is that it's not that they don't have fears. They still do, right? But they still go in anyway. Okay. So think about business or your automation agency, your sales system agency, as you are entering this dark, obscure room, right? And you're not sure what's going to happen in that room, but you go in anyway. Okay. Because clarity comes from action. Okay. And then step by step, you get ahead. Okay. So step by step, you get ahead, not necessarily in fast spurts, but you prepare yourself for that day where everything happens, okay? So always think to yourself, I'm not just playing a one-time game, I'm playing a multi-time game. That way, you remove all that fear about failure, okay? And you focus on actually doing the work, okay? So everything else is, right? Let me tell you something. All the voices that you're hearing, they don't exist, right? They don't exist, right? Only the task. Nothing exists, only the task. So just be the task, okay? This is what I took from Mike Tyson, actually. If you guys don't know, I used to be a nightclub bouncer. And before that, I used to watch a lot of like Mike Tyson because I used to box too. And then I used to listen to what his coach, Kazumoto, would say to him. He'd say, hey, listen, all of these fears that you have, like such as, what if I'm a fraud? What if I don't succeed? Nothing exists. Only the task, okay? So go ahead and do the task, right? All of these are just limiting beliefs these are just demons. These are just voices in your head that don't really exist, okay? Ignore them and be the task, okay? Third thing I'm going to talk about. So first thing is, what if I don't fail? Change it to it's impossible to fail. I'm not playing a one-time game. I'm playing a multi-time game, okay? Let's talk about the third one, which is, I have to be perfect from the get-go. And this is something that I also struggled with when I first got started, okay? Because I'm like, okay, I need to perfect this niche. I need to perfect this market. I need to perfect this automation. And until I perfect it, then I will be successful, okay? So this is basically the kiss of death, okay? So instead of thinking, oh, I have to be perfect from the get-go, and only then I can be successful, right? Change it to progress beats perfection. See, all successful people weren't born successful. What they've done is they failed multiple times, right? And then they just kept going, okay? Because guess what? Let me take some of the anxiety of your chest. Failure, or let's not call it failure. Let's say not succeeding in one thing in the first try. No, it just means that if you've identified and found what doesn't work, well, now you're left with other things you can try. That's a really powerful thing to have, right? So now you know that this thing doesn't work. Well, you're so sure. So if that thing doesn't work, well, the other thing will. It's basically just like peeling the layers. As you go, you peel the layers. Okay, this doesn't work. Okay, discard it. Well, let's move on to the next thing. If it works, well, great. If it doesn't work, again, you removed another thing that doesn't work and you keep on going until you actually succeed. Okay. So let me give you a recap. Change your paradigm from what if I fail to it's impossible to fail. Change the I'm playing a one-time game to I'm playing a multi-time game. And never say I have to be perfect from the get-go. Always say that progress beats perfection and iteration leads to mastery. See now, we're not stressed anymore, right? We can actually focus on the practical actionables that we need to be doing. Okay. So this is basically the limits and beliefs. Now let's talk about social proof. Now this is a big issue with the AI and automation space that most gurus don't address, because people, when they first got started, right? They don't have any social proof, right? But they don't have any social proof yet. And I'm going to explain to you that you already have social proof, right? And it doesn't matter which stage you are in life, you always have your own little color. See, the interesting part about human nature is that we can easily pinpoint other people's strengths, but we can never pinpoint our own strengths, right? We can never look within ourselves. We never look within ourselves. We never look within our soul, okay? It's easy for me to look at you and see the gift that you have that is already valuable. But it's hard for me to see that the gifts that I have is valuable, right? Maybe that's because the only person that our eyes can see is us. We value everybody else's gifts, but we never value our own, okay? So nobody is starting from zero. Now that you are watching this, okay, in whatever stage you are in, whatever stage you are in life, you already have your own story, okay? So when you want to build a profitable sales automation or an automation agency, you already have your own social proof. I mean, think about it. There's this guy in my community that is 19 years old, right? And he's making 30K a month, right? And the reason, the way he was able to get his first clients is he literally said to the prospects, hey, I am a student. I built this system that does X, Y, and Z. I'm confident I can build it for you. Now, he differentiated himself from all the service providers because it's his own little color and people appreciate honesty. Now, let me give you another example. Let's say you worked in 9 to 5. Well, that's again still social proof. That's still a story. That's still things that you've done. See, we're so caught up in seeing other people's strengths that we never look at our own strength just because we live in ourselves and everything that we see in ourselves is just basic, right? Because we live in ourselves. So for other people, these things that might seem basic for you, well, they look cool for other people and they still look cool for other prospects, right? And they will be willing to actually work with you and pay you thousands of dollars, right? So let me give you another example. Let's say you worked on 9 to 5 and you worked in any type of field, IT, manufacturing, literally anything, healthcare. That's still your social proof, right? You can leverage that, right? I have another member in the community. He managed to get his first clients within a month. It's called Mayton. Shout out to you, my friend. He's a software developer, right? He literally went in a call and said to the prospects, hey, I'm actually a software developer, right? This is my first call, but I'm confident I can get you results, right? Because the reason why you are in a call with me, right, is because I use this exact same system. So I can essentially replicate the same thing and achieve the same success for you. Boom. See how he differentiated himself? He didn't have to lie about it, right? You don't have to lie about it because you already have your own little color, right? So you already have your story. You're never starting from zero. You already have your own story. So use that. That's your social proof. For example, let's say you're just getting started, you're a beginner, right? Or even if you are a freelancer, let's say you've worked on multiple projects before. Well, let's say even like a student, okay? So let's say you're a student, you're like a computer science student or any type of literally any type of field. Okay, you can leverage that. Say, hey, I do this, right? This is your social proof, and this is how you stand out from the sea of everybody, right? Because it's your own. Nobody can take it from you, right? So this is your social proof, right? So when you are wondering, well, I don't have social proof, right? What do I do? Well, that's your social proof, okay? The third thing I'm going to be talking about is niche selection, okay? So niche selection is a big problem is because people try to spend months come up with the perfect niche, when in reality, there's no such thing as such a perfect niche, The perfect niche comes after you interfere with the market, okay? So instead of trying to think about the perfect niche and spending all of your time in analysis paralysis, okay, well, if I try this niche, well, I don't know, or should I go for this other niche? Just pick one, okay? Let me give you practical advice. Go for a B2B niche, right? Why B2B niche, Saad? Well, just because B2B is huge. There's 1,000,001 company inside the B2B niche. Every single day, there's a new B2B company that just comes, right? So go for the B2B niche. That's literally all your homework. Go for the B2B niche, right? It doesn't have to be super niched. You don't have to niche down. Go broad. B2B tech, right? Because let me tell you something. You want to go broad for a variety of reasons. One, which is the cold hard truth, you are not in that level to pinpoint whether a niche is going to be profitable or not. You are not in that level yet, because the only way to know whether that niche is good or not is by trying it, because clarity comes from action. You can't outthink your way, right, into success. It doesn't happen. Success comes from action, right? Comes from action, because once you take a step forward, well, the next step just comes naturally. But if you try to predict the next 20 steps, well, guess what? You're going to be stuck in the same place for years. So now I know you might be wondering, Saad, well, okay, can you give me like 5 to 10 niches? For sure. Go for IT, go for recruitment, go for manufacturing, go for cybersecurity. There's 1,000,001 niche. Just pick one and go for it, okay? Let's talk about infrastructure, okay? So infrastructure is essentially the vehicle or the ship that you're going to be using to get to that successful automation or sales system agency. Well, let's reverse engineer this, okay? So the way to get to 10K is obviously you need clients, right? Let's reverse engineer this. You need clients. Well, how do you get clients, right? Well, it's through outreach, right? We reach out to clients because clients are not just going to come to you. You need to come to them, right? Because I always say this, everybody needs you. They just don't know who you are. So you need to put yourself out there. Put yourself out there that way people can see you, right? So the only thing you have to do is outreach to get to 10K. That's literally what I did, okay? And that's literally what every successful person or successful business did. The bones of any B2B business started with outreach. Think about it. The LinkedIn, the company LinkedIn. See, in the book Blitzscaling by Ryan Hoffman, he talked about how they got their first milestone, how they got to their first, I believe, like 1 million a year by just outreach, right? They literally would get people, right, on a call through outreach, right? And then they would present this pitch deck, and these companies would actually start using LinkedIn, okay? So what makes you think that you should not be doing the same? So in order for you to get to 10K, okay, well, obviously you need, like we talked about, clients paying you. Well, how do we get clients? Well, through outreach, okay? And for us to be able to do the outreach, well, we need an infrastructure. Let me give you an analogy. So back then, people would use pigeons to reach out to other people, right? Think about it the same way. So pigeons would literally have like a letter, and the recipient will receive that letter through the pigeon, okay? So in our case, the infrastructure is the pigeon. Well, what is the infrastructure? Well, in order for you to do any kind of outreach, well, obviously, since you're reaching out to thousands of companies, well, same analogy, thousands of recipients, well, you need multiple, what? You guessed that, pigeons, because one pigeon is not going to be able to hold thousands of letters, right? So what do we need? We need an infrastructure, which is essentially multiple pigeons. In our case, well, how do we do outreach? Well, multiple emails and domains, okay? So you need multiple emails and domains, because think about it. If you try to hook your pigeon with thousands of letters, well, the pigeon is eventually going to fall off from the sky, and it might get sick, it might die, and the recipient is never going to be able to read the content of that letter or even receive that letter from the first place, right? Same thing. Since we have multiple pigeons, well, we need 10 to 15 emails, okay? So 10 to 15 emails, right? Because just like pigeons are going to get sick and die or fall from the sky, emails have email service providers such as the big ones, Google and Microsoft. Now, if they notice that you're sending so many emails, right, from one pigeon or like one email, well, now the pigeon, which is your email, is going to deteriorate. So it's the same thing. The inbox health is going to go down. And your pigeon's health at the same time is going to go down, right? So 10 to 15 emails. You can always go for more, right? But 15 is like the minimum, right? 10 to 15 is like the minimum. You can always go for more, right? If you want to send more, meaning more pigeons. That way you can reach out more of your recipients, okay? So this is basically the infrastructure and the ship that you're going to be using to successfully have a good outreach, okay? Now, I know you might be wondering, Saad, well, where do I get the emails? Well, listen to me closely. You want to get 50% Google and 50% Microsoft, because multiple companies would be using multiple email service providers. So the best way for the best deliverability, right? Always get 50% Google. For example, if you get 15 emails, so get like 8 Microsoft, and the remaining is in Google. Where do I get them, Saad? We'll get them through premium inboxes. So premium inboxes for Google, okay? I'm not affiliated with these guys. It's just the one that I recommend, right? And I use every single day. This is for Google, okay? And for Microsoft, go for Inboxology, okay? So they also provide Microsoft. So this is what you get for Microsoft, and premium inboxes for Google, okay? So get 50% Google, 50% Microsoft, okay? So this is basically your ship that you're going to be using, all right? Let's talk about the lead scraping. So what is lead scraping? Okay, so in order for you to reach out to thousands of recipients, well, you need these recipients, okay? And it's typically just data, right? That includes basically a decision maker that you want to talk to, their company name, along with a couple information, all right? Well, back then, in order for us to gather data, well, it took us thousands of hours to just get a sample list. Well, now we have scraping platforms, right? And we have lead sourcing databases that make our life easier, right? So what do? Well, here's what to do. So in order for you to reach out to these people, well, you need a sample size. Well, what I mean by sample size is a list of companies and decision makers that you're going to reach out to. So I know you might be thinking, Saad, well, how many leads do I need? Well, here's how many leads you need. You want at least 3,000 contacts. Now, 3,000 contacts, right, is the sweet spot, okay? Because if you go lower than that, well, this sample size is not going to give you enough data, right, to establish the proof of concept, okay? So at first you want to establish the proof of concept, and think about it like a scientist, right? He has a sample, or she has a sample that goes and builds from it, okay? But if they try on just 1 or 2, well, there's not enough data to establish proof of concept. Now, I know you might be wondering, Saad, well, how do I gather data? Well, just like I talked about, you want to be doing things that don't scale. And the one that I recommend is going to be Apollo. All right. So scrape Apollo. You build your list. I have multiple videos on showing you exactly how I would do it. Okay. So build a list through Apollo. And how do I scrape Apollo? Well, it's through Epify. Okay. Simply, let me go back. Simply go to Apollo. So it's going to be scrape up to 50K leads. This is the one that I recommend you guys. It's extremely affordable. It's like $1.20 per 1,000 leads. So this is what you would be using, all right? So you would scrape 3,000 leads off Apollo, right? So we just finished lead scraping, okay? So now you've launched your sales system campaign, right? So now what do? Well, here's what to do. Typically, when you start sending, right? Well, you're going to get responses, right? So for example, if you reach out to 3,000 contacts, okay, you're going to get a couple replies, okay? So let's say, for example, right, you only get 2% reply rate. It's, let's do the math. So 3,000 minus 2%. Okay, so 2940. Okay, so that's like 60 replies, okay? So 60 replies, okay? Well, assuming only, let's say, for example, only 50% of them are positive. Okay, so it's what? 30. So 30 replies. Now, let's say 30 of these positive decision makers, right, only 15, right, are willing to have a conversation, all right? So only 50%. Now, only 9 actually show up to the meeting, right? So from 9, you only, let's say you're terrible at closing. You only close 1 from 9. And you price it at 2K. See how it becomes like just math, right? Now, here's where you can scale, because this is the last step. This is essentially what's going to get you to that 10K. So let's talk about it logically. What did I say in the first beginning of the video? I said pick a broad niche. Well, now you will understand why I said pick a broad niche, right? Because when you pick the broad niche, right, you have multiple verticals, multiple companies inside that vertical that provide different services and different, they have different products. Well, all right. So, okay, I sent 3,000 leads. I picked a broad niche. I got positive replies. Well, okay, let me just look over the website of that lead that responded positively. Okay, well, what are the keywords that they are mentioning in their website? What are the specific offers that they have? Boom, you found the niche. Well, your outreach resonated with that type of companies. Well, what do? We find companies that are similar in that exact niche. All you have to do, another sample size of 3,000, you added to the same sales campaign, you reach out to the same company in the same vertical, because guess what? That outreach resonated with them, so now I can scale it. Well, what do I have here? Since I have the first clients that paid me 2K, right? Assuming I closed this, because I said I closed it, and let's say you're terrible and you still close 1 from 9, you have 2K. Well, now, not only you have a client, you also have proof of concept, which is, I believe, is like 100% more valuable than the 2K, right? Proof of concept, you also have, well, now since you're working with this client, you also have social proof. Well, that social proof is going to get you what? More clients, right? It's going to open doors for more referrals. And now we have every single thing that's working in your favor, okay? See the reason why I said go broad? So now clarity came from taking action, okay? So now it's basically just rise and repeat. You have that client that's paying you 2K. You're delivering. At the same time, you established proof of concept. Well, now you double down. And since this outreach worked on this type of clients, this exact vertical, well, now you double down and you get another client. And you say, hey, I'm working with this exact client in the same field and the same space that you are working with, right? Well, now you are essentially proving yourself as an authority and you have social proof. Well, you get another 2K clients and another 2K clients, and there we go. So now you have 5 clients. And guess what? Where you're at right now is 10K. See how mathematically just makes sense, right? So let me give you another recap. So if I had to compile everything, right? Well, here's what I would do. Okay. Shift the paradigm of I'm playing a one-time game, right? To I'm playing a multi-time game. Always think to yourself, it is impossible to fail what if I fail? The third thing is better to start now than trying to come up with this perfect strategy. Okay? So these are the main core paradigm shifts that you need to implement that's going to allow you to actually do these tasks. Okay? Second thing, pick a broad niche, a B2B niche. Pick an infrastructure, just exactly how I mentioned, right? Reach out to these people, right? Once you get that traction, well, get them on a call. Well, now you have a client. So you got your first win. You got momentum. Well, you double down on what worked, right? And then slowly but surely you build your own social proof. And then there you go. You're at 10K. See how it makes sense? So where do we go from here? Well, the only thing you have to do now is get out there, take action. And I believe in you, right? And I'll talk to you soon. Peace.